So 1 year after the monstrous success of the first Scream movie, we get the sequel, Scream 2. Once again directed by Wes Craven, once again written by Kevin Williamson, Neve Campbell, David Arquette, Jamie Kennedy, and Courtney Cox return. But we also get new additions like Jerry O'Connelly, Timothy Olyphant, and Liev Schreiber. Of course, Liev Schreiber had like a small cameo appearance as Cotton Weir in the first one. In this movie, the character of Cotton gets more expanded upon, gets more development, and we actually see more development in his relationship with Sidney. And that's one of the things I like about Scream 2. It's that more character development happens. We had the foundation, and now we get to have fun with the characters. Of course, in movie world, the movie takes place 2 years after the events of the first movie, which makes a lot of sense. Randy and Sidney are now in college, and a new killer is on the loose. In the prologue, the two characters played by Jada Pinkett Smith and Omar Epps are brutally killed inside of a movie theater while watching Stab, which is a meta recreation of the first movie, which is awesome because they actually got Robert Rodriguez to direct those Stab scenes, so that's just fantastic. But those two were killed, and as the movie progresses, we find out that the killer is copycatting the events of the first Scream movie. Pretty much trying to make a real life sequel. And it's a very intriguing idea, and I think the movie pulls it off fairly well. I like it. I like the new additions. I like Timothy Olyphant as Mickey, who was one of my favorite characters in the movie. While Randy represents the original, Mickey represents the sequel. And every time they have discussions, Randy's always defending the first movie, while Mickey always tries to make a case for the sequels. So their counterparts are also very meta. Randy represents what's old, Mickey represents what's new, and what's improved. So that whole meta of Scream, how no one caught that is beyond me. How no one caught the fact that that Randy represented the original and Mickey represented the sequel when they had the discussions. It's like those small little details that will make characters and make those little moments mean so much more, those little nuances that you gotta really pay attention to. I love stuff like that. It's great. You get this character called Debbie Salt, played by Lloyd Metcalf, who's pretty much shadowing, Gale Weathers, because she's like a Gale Weathers super fan, and she plays a big role in the end of the movie too. Speaking of Gale Weathers, Gale's and Dewey's relationship is more expanded upon in this movie, to me, that is. I think, first movie, it was the introduction and the beginnings of a love story. This one, it's more towards like being a little bit more aggravation, because Gale wrote a book capitalizing on the murders, and in that book she has some derogatory things to say about Dewey, which hurt Dewey because, Dewey's a sensitive guy. But, as the movie progresses, you really do see this spark between these two characters. Like there is an affection there, and the movie does a good job at expanding upon that affection. Another thing I like is the whole story of Sidney and Cotton gets more expanded upon. Cotton's whole story in this movie is that he was wrongfully accused. He got released from prison. He's telling his story, and he wants to do an interview where it's him and Sidney going back and forth telling the story. Of course, Sidney refuses to do it because she doesn't want the media attention, but Cotton wants the media attention. So throughout this whole movie, he's kind of like, harassing her a little bit, following her around. There's this really cool scene, very tense scene in the library. And I actually like the fact that Drew did a good job at almost convincing you that Cotton could be one of the suspects, just because he already has that built-in history from the first movie. So you can kind of buy the fact that maybe he would be out for Sidney, but it's revealed that he would never harm Sidney despite what happened, because he doesn't bear any ill will against Sidney. You can't blame somebody for seeing what they saw, and you're the only one who was there. But they don't become friends or anything, but they start to develop a mutual respect for one another near the end of the movie, where Cotton becomes the hero, which I thought was a really cool idea. And Liev Schreiber's performance throughout the entire film is fantastic. He's very, very funny. He can be very intense. He's a really good actor. And Neve Campbell also was great as Sidney as well. she playing a character who's suffering from post-traumatic stress. Very leery, very world-weary, has caller ID, stuff like that. I also like the relationship she has with Jerry O'Connell, who plays Derek, the new boyfriend. I like the fact that the movie didn't try to recreate the boyfriend as the killer again, because I actually like the character of Derek. I feel bad for the character of Derek. He's trying so hard to be the good boyfriend, and Sydney just keeps letting all this shit get to her, and he's trying so hard to help, and she keeps pushing him away. It's like, come on, Sydney, the guy's trying to help. Give him a break, will you? I like Jerry O'Connell a lot as Derek. He really does a fantastic job. This movie has, cameo, so to speak, by Sarah Michelle Gellar, and her death scene, it's atmospheric, good pace to it, very good scare. I like it, even though she has no bearing on the plot. Actually, no, she does have some bearing on the plot, because her name is Cece. Cece, short for Casey, playing back to this whole thing of this movie having a copycat killer. So, in essence, Sarah Michelle Gellar's character does play a small little role in terms of the overall plot. I say a lot of the kills in this movie are done pretty well. Cece's death is cool. The opening prologue with Jada Pinkett Smith and Omar Epps, that's cool too. There's this really fun scene near the end where Sydney and her friend are in a police car being driven by these two detectives, and the killer attacks them in the street. He stabs the guy who's driving, then he runs over the other guy, and this fucking metal pole goes right through his eye. It's really gnarly. Really good scene. This movie also has really good directed atmospheric scene. Like there's this one scene where Sydney's doing a play rehearsal, and she keeps seeing Ghostface, and you have this Danny Elfman music called Cassandra playing in the background because they're doing a play about the fall of Troy, and you got this really operatic music playing in the background. Sydney keeps seeing Ghostface everywhere she turns. She's starting to get really creeped out by it. That's good stuff too. Of course, that scene also has an appearance by David Warner playing a guy called Gus, and it's David Warner. He deserves a mention because Lovejoy, find her. And then we get to the end of the movie where, actually, before I talk about the end, my biggest problem with Scream 2 is, why would you kill off Randy? Why would you kill off Randy? Especially if you weren't going to pass the torch on to Mickey. My biggest gripe and complaint with Scream 2 is they killed off Randy, and it's a bad decision. Why would you kill Randy off? Randy, I loved Randy in the first Scream movie. I love Randy in this movie, and you kill him off and you give him the death that says, yes, he's dead, he's never coming back. Bad on you, movie. That's an automatic point deduction. You don't kill Randy, who was one of the best characters in the whole damn movie. And especially when you get to the end where it's revealed that Mickey is one of the killers, which kind of, I thought they were going to set up, Randy and Mickey as like a movie tag team, and they were going to go on to be like a Batman and Robin of movies. Instead, Mickey's the killer, and it's revealed that Debbie Salt is the killer also, but her name's not Debbie Salt. She's Mrs. Loomis, mother of Billy. So Mickey's whole motivation is that I'm going to blame the movies. The trial. Pretty much, this movie is satirizing the whole blame the media for the corruption of youth type deal. Well, Mrs. Loomis, her motivation is more simple, it's more basic. It's, you killed my son, I'm going to kill you. Your mother broke up my family, which caused me to leave. So while Mickey's motivation is out there, Debbie's motivation is more grounded, and it's more personal. And I also like the fact, and this is another nuance that works for me, you never see Sydney and Debbie Salt share any screen time to the end of the movie because Sydney knows what Mrs. Loomis looks like. So if she would have saw Debbie Salt face to face early in the movie, there would have been no reveal. It would have made zero sense. It's like, you know who she looks like. You dated her son. You've seen her face to face. That's why I thought it was a good idea not having them meet to the end of the movie, because it would have just, this entire movie would have been out of whack if they would have met earlier on. So yeah, and the climax, works for me. It gets tied up in a nice bow. Scream 2 is its own self-contained story. It doesn't leave any threads open for a third movie. It all wraps up nicely, and I like it a lot. So, now let's talk about some production stuff before I wrap it up. Wes Craven, once again, as a director, fantastic. He has a new TP. He has a new DP this time around in Peter Deming, and Peter Deming does a fantastic job. Peter Deming is known for doing a lot of other movies, and he's very talented. And he and Wes Craven are a good pairing. They create a very tense, atmospheric, and fun vibe to this movie, and everything is all well grounded. The performances work. Everything works. Despite that Randy criticism, this is a near perfect sequel, which is why I got no problem giving it a 9 out of 10. I like it better than the first, but because you killed off Randy, I cannot go higher than a 9. Anyway, let me know what you thought about Scream 2 in the comment sections below. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let me know. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.